So recently I got a message on Facebook from Tony, and he asked me to look at his drawings and give some suggestions. So I'm going to have a look and do a draw over and just offer my thoughts. And first of all, it takes a bit of courage to do that. So I appreciate him doing that, and I'll read his short note. I've been watching and subscribed to your YouTube channel. It's like a free art school, and it's immensely appreciated. Thanks for sharing the knowledge. I do have a question, which I hope you don't mind answering. During the gestural stage of figure drawing, should I also be considering proportion? I've been studying those famous artist school binders, and while gesture is shown, there's not any mention of proportion at that stage. As always, I appreciate your time, Paul. I've been working on eliminating superfluous detail in rendering, which I use to cover up a slew of defects, and just focused on form. It's a hard habit to break, but I do keep my Toth library and my reference books handy. I also keep rereading your Comic Book Artist magazine interview with Toth when I began to relapse into bad habits. And I'd asked him for permission to, use his work and show it, rather than do something privately. And he said, yes, by all means, please do use my work. I don't know what I don't know. You certainly can mention me by name. There's zero shame in being a student in need of instruction. And hopefully this might help other people, so that's good to come forward. No problem, Paul. I'm an eternal student, and how would I be able to grow if I didn't accept critique and instruction? I thank you for taking time for my work. And that's really the key, is just being honest. I mean, if we want to make progress in any area of life, including, including drawing, you have to be honest. Because, if it's not working, it's not working. Of course, the problem can be, even if you're being honest, you have to figure out what would be the actual step of improvement, because sometimes you rework a drawing and it doesn't improve it, it makes it worse, and then you get even more frustrated. So, first of all, here's some of his, I've got my notes to myself here, but here's some of his drawings. And what I did is I printed out the actual drawings in darker, and then I'm going to work over it here. So I'll just shift my camera here so we can see a little better. And so Tony had asked me about proportion, and to recap, the actual question is, during the gestural stage of figure drawing, should I also be considering proportion? Well, the basic answer is yes. You have to consider everything, because of course if you do a cool gesture but it's way out of whack, then you're going to have to fix that at some point. So really what I would point to more though here is starting with these, which are mostly heads. Really, I would suggest that it's not just really a matter of proportion, it's a matter of construction. So if you look at some of these heads like here, I don't know if you're working from reference or not, or just out of your head, but you don't have really the structure and the volume of the head. So the first thing would be, you get, I'll show you this one first. This is a little big to fit in camera, but this is a plastic model of a skull. I think I bought it a few years ago on Amazon. And they sell various ones. And this is a little big to fit in the video, so I'll use this, but a smaller one. But really, if you practice drawing this, you get a number of bonuses, because you're going to be learning proportions and you're going to be learning volumes. In fact, if this isn't that expensive, if you get a cheapo one, what you can do is draw center lines. I haven't done it here, but draw like a center line here all the way down with a marker. And then you draw your side halfway point here where the jawbone is, which is roughly halfway. And then you can, use those facts when you draw it. And if you practice drawing from this, you're going to get a much better sense of heads. Like here, just want to make sure I stay in frame. See on this one, let's get our little skull here. It's at about this angle, and just making sure the camera can see this clearly. So you need the feeling of planes, like this would be the eye socket here, and the nose. But let's get the main volumes in first. Like, see, if you look at the proportions, talking about proportion of this skull, you've got the cranium. I'll just keep it sketchy. And then I mean, this can vary a lot because it depends on the type of face. And the thing about learning the skeleton, the bones underneath, in this case the skull, the bones dictate the rest of the look, the type of character. So if somebody had a receding chin, their jaw would be further back, or the different proportions of the elements of the face would be, and the type of cheekbone, for example, would be determined by this. So here, I don't know what your original goal was, but you would block in the angles, which is something you do in drawing faces and figures. You're working on not only the angle of the perspective like this, but you're working on the basic angles of like what kind of jawbone does the person have. So say it's that kind of that, like it's a little more angled than this. There's also a whole thing you can do where on a skull or a character, if you're working it out, there's a basic angle between, say, the nose, the type of angle here on a nose, if you can see that, and then the angle down to the chin. That's one type of character. So I'm always thinking of that, right? And you're thinking of things like center lines. So, and then the ear here, which you can see over there, is really out of place. Like it's way too far back. You can see on this, it should be much more, you'd have some kind of cheekbone here, and the nostril, whatever type of nostril the person has, the eye socket, and the eye. And because it's turned a little bit from sideways, you're seeing a little bit of the far side, but not the other cheekbone yet. And then you're going to have the ear roughly lining up with the nose, and the ear's usually angled back a little bit. So this ear over here, it's way too far. It's way too far over. There's much too big a gap in the side plane, and that's another word you should always be thinking of as planes. They talk about it in older drawing books. Like there's the front plane here of the face, and then you're moving on to the side where the temple is, and then you have whatever hairline. Looks like this guy's got a kind of sideburns, and he's got hair coming here. So I haven't really captured the same kind of character that he was drawing with longer hair here. I haven't really captured it exactly. I'm really just talking about proportion and construction. And it's the same for, say, like some of these other angles. Like, say, this is an upshot over here. So I'm making the skull from the same angle from where I'm looking at it. It may not look like that to the camera, but again, you want to be thinking, if you're going to think in simple construction, you're thinking about form. And so you're thinking about the center line. You're thinking about the sockets, like the eye sockets, wherever the guy's looking. And you're thinking about like volume. And if you look here, if you have something like a skull, always, like I say, it's going to remind you in real life about solidity. I've drawn his mouth closed. And then you're looking at the jawbone. Like so here, because he's tipped back, you're going to see almost a straight line across the bottom of the jaw. And if you practice drawing from real things, this is one of the key things I'll emphasize. If you practice drawing from real things, you'll get a sense of real solidity. You can't really get that from photographs, and you can't get it from imagining it when you haven't done it. So you can draw from real, more complicated things. Ideally, though, it's good to go in a progression from drawing simple things, such as I showed in my other videos, things like this. Make something like this for yourself and draw it. You can get other things, like I showed in another video that I made this model of the rib cage on a human. This would be the front. And it gets you used to, if you draw it and study it, it gets you used to a simplified version of the volumes of that. And one more thing here, like for example on this, let's switch this over here, this head over here. So again, it's very flat, like the eyes are not pushed back into the eye sockets and the nose is not projecting out. So I'll work over it a bit here. Let's fold this like this, just to make it a bit easier. So again, you're thinking of the angle. That's the forehead tilted back. You've got the a line of the eyebrows and you're trying to keep things straight. But then if the nose dips in and then comes back out, these would be the planes. Depending on the kind of nose, you're thinking three-dimensionally, and you're always trying to stay true to the form. So I don't know if the guy's yelling, but this would be like his teeth. Looks like he's supposed to be yelling or talking or something. And so you've got his jaw coming down, like open like that. And again, these eye sockets, if you made an imaginary center point on each eyebrow, and then you imagine them scooping in, the eyes themselves would be back in here. Let's have them looking over just for fun. So I'm trying to get them pushed back. So I guess that nose line might be more like there, but. And then you've got the edge of the skull. And depending on the type of person and the type of his cheekbone under the skin, depends on where that line would be. And then of course it would also depend on how fleshy the person is. Like if they had a really fleshy face here, like say they were really slim, their face might be like that. But if they had a lot of extra flesh, frankly, the line would be there. So again, you're thinking of the mandible, the jaw here, connecting into you've got the volumes of the cheekbones. And again, this center line keeps you honest. And then if you imagine a side plane, like you can kind of see here on the lighting on this, and if the head's tilted back, you're going to have the perspective for where the ear is down here, as you can see in the model. And then your ear's coming out slightly because they angle out slightly. You can have something like that, again, depending on where the ear is. And again, this would depend on what kind of hairline the person has. I could probably add a little more side volume here. It looks to me, this ear looks a little close. So maybe we'll go like that. And the lips. I think you get the idea, though. The idea is to try and get solidity in your drawings. And I'm adding 70s here because everything's been 70s lately. I don't know why. So let's go 70s sideburns, 70s longer here. And so again, I'm going to reiterate, if you practice drawing from real things, from life, it could be also for the figure, which I'm not really getting into too much, although I'll look at one other drawing here. For the figure, yeah, go to a life drawing class. That's like vital to go and study the real model. You can have anatomy models. That's me hitting my lamp, the sound. You can have anatomy models, which are great, but of course this isn't moving and bending and flexing, and it's not a real person, but it is great for looking at the structure. But if you go and study a real life drawing nude model, there's no replacement for that. If you don't have that, there's online ones where they show different photos. That's okay too. There's 3D poser apps, which is sort of okay to give you a sense of things turning. I mean, there's no real replacement for going and looking with your own eyes at things. So what you can do, and you can do a mix of those things, but what you could do is go and try and draw people, like say on a street, you know, when they're sitting around, do quick sketches. That's a great way to learn. For longer poses, you could get a family member to pose like in their, in their clothes or whatever, but get them to sit there and draw them, or their face, their head, different angles. That's really how you study and practice drawing. And yeah, that's where you get the real progress, because you quickly get a sense of volume. And if you combine it with theoretical studies, like studying skulls, like I'm showing here, and practice your skull model, you're always thinking of center lines, like I said, construction lines, and then you build on top of that. If you make those a habit of your thinking and you have that discipline, then your drawings, you go forward, because you stop kind of cheating or fudging it. Because a lot of this, I think, is they're just habits, but it's not a structured way of drawing. And you need more of that. And I think you're trying to do that because you're asking me about Famous Artist School and Bridgman and stuff. Let me find my other drawing that you sent me, which I'll just do a quick thing about this. You'd sent me this, you'd sent me a bunch of your drawings, and this is more of a composition, so I could say a lot of different things about this. There's things about gesture and anatomy and proportion. I guess this is digressing a bit off proportion, but what I would say is, if you're going to do, it looks like you're trying to do like a comic superhero sort of heroic story moment, but my critique would extend into working out better what is the actual moment. Like here, I can't tell, has this guy been surprised? Like, why is he twisting around like this? And what's this guy doing? So if this guy here, who looks like he's probably the hero, this is some kind of ogre or demon, if he's leaping at him, is he defending? Was he surprised? Like, is his head turned like this because he was facing the other way doing something? And then he turned around and this guy's attacking him. And this guy, and this is not really talking about the anatomy and stuff and the silhouettes. I would make a lot of comments about those. But it's not clear what this guy's doing. Like, where did he come from? Is he leaping from something else, or is he being lifted off by the main guy by his throat? And this isn't bad. Like he's kind of defending. He's like grabbing him because he's been grabbed by the throat. So the ogre is defending, and he's about to stab him. That's good. But it's kind of a bit confused. And then in terms of proportions, like this hand is really tiny, and I can't tell if this arm is coming towards me or away. And then there's kind of strange things happening in terms of the construction of this guy's body. Like what might have been cool is to have, if you can still see that, yeah. What might have been cool is to have this ogre guy leaping off the steps. Or maybe, I'll see if this sketches in. I mean, if it was up to me completely, I would rework this out more and change it around. But if I'm working with what you've got here and trying to modify it, which is something you should really do, is draw over. You could have him like he's like, forget about drawing this leg over in front. Have him like he's over here. And it could be an action pose, but I'm drawing him stable, you know, like he's maybe he's got some other guy here by the, you know, he's like, he's choking him. I don't know if you can see that. I'll link it in quickly. Maybe this guy's got a sword. And let's have him tilted. And so maybe the story moment is that hero was dealing with this guy on the right, and then he got surprised, and this guy's like leaping in. I don't know. See, some of these things take a while to work out, so I'm not necessarily making this the be-all and end-all. But he could be coming in from the side, and make it like he's leaping off the steps. So if these are the steps, he's leaping at him. And then, of course, the line of this needs a lot more. It should almost be like he's got the sword, and he's got it in a grip like that, which I think you had. But really, the advice I've given people, I can't completely work this out in this video because it's not really the point, but hopefully this is going to be helpful for you or anyone else in terms of thinking. Like what you do is you work it out. I would usually do this like artists do in smaller little sketches, work out the exact silhouettes of this. I like this guy's face. Work on the construction. I don't know what that helmet's doing. Let me see your original design. Okay. I'm kind of trying to do this quickly, but and a lot of it is feeling and evolution. Like you might do, if you're doing it on a computer, you might do overlays and just layers and just keep tracing or erasing. You can do it on paper too, just by, like often what I do is do some drawing at whatever size and then flip it over and redraw it on the back or on a light table and then retrace that onto a new piece and just keep messing with it. Or sometimes use whiteout. Other times you can use, patches. You stick a patch on. You can do really whatever you want. This guy's a little, the way I'm having him here, he's a little bit stationary, probably for a superhero thing. It should probably be more like his legs going up like this. And he maybe even look like he's driving forward more. And this is where you would play with gesture and not, you're going to be thinking about proportion, but you're really more trying to evolve like a story moment. Looking at this guy's costume. I'm not drawing the costume the way you had it, Tony, but, and in fact, I think his body is too short here, so I'd probably work it out more like that. But let's draw some quick, maybe make his head a little smaller. You think about construction, his collarbone is up. You're gonna have this deltoid, the muscles. And again, this is just like a rough sketch. I would do a whole bunch more draw-overs of this. And you want eye contact too. Like you want, I've made it dark there, but you want this guy, the eye line, he's looking at the guy, and that's establishing, you know, the connection, emotional connection, or whatever you want to call it. Like there's the interaction. He's like, I'm dealing with you, and then he's going to go back to this guy. He's got him on hold, the guy over on the right. And if you show this, it looks like he's actually coming forward. I'm a little rusty myself in my figure drawing. I haven't been drawing superheroes, so, but why apologize? Basically, I would always work out first the form, the 3D form, like you see here, like the twist or whatever, and the silhouettes. I'm really, when it's compositional, I'm thinking more about the outer silhouettes of these things and making a pleasing drawing. If you look at people like Frazetta, and I should do a video on that, and trace just around the outlines of each figure, which is a great exercise to do. Maybe I should do that. Note to self. You'll see that he really has dynamic outlines. And what you're kind of doing sometimes, I mean, sometimes you just nail it, but other times you're sort of searching for what's going to be the right answer. So sometimes you just experiment. Like I've got him up on his toes here too, which even though he's kind of on the ground, you'd show a shadow here. Even though he's on his the ground, he's quite upright. He's on his toes a bit, and I could have drawn him bending over forward a little more. These are the kind of things you'd experiment with to try and find the right solution. And probably this guy's mouth should be open more. He could be like he's being choked. So that's like an element, you know. He's foaming. And then maybe we make it like his other hand is going. That's storytelling, because see this foreground, this would be his far hand, the other guy, and he's got his sword. Maybe he's letting his sword hand go open because he's being choked. So you show the sword falling out of his hand a bit, right? And then you could have another guy here that's been successfully vanquished already. This, you know, hands. I don't know if that's going to show, but I have a guy here. And, you know, the pile of dead bodies for Zeta thing. And that, what that is storytelling. It's building in a story moment. And what you're doing is a frozen moment in time where you're considering all the different elements. I think this guy's kind of working okay now. He's got, I'm going to draw faster because I'm recording these, like I always say, on my phone, and when they get too giant in memory, they give me problems. So I'm about 24 minutes, so I'm close to the end. So he's got this short sword or dagger, whatever it is, and he's holding it like this. See, I'm really just drawing almost in silhouettes. I'm thinking about construction and gesture, like here, the shapes. But you're also thinking of proportion. You're thinking of perspective. Like I'm feeling like this guy's going back in space. So he's like tipped back. This guy back here. This guy's straight on to us. This guy's on an angle. And he's leaping in from off screen, maybe off these steps. And then I'm going to have a low angle, so I'm going to think horizon line. So the horizon's probably here. You might even have this going up, which gives us a nice arc of lines. And it could come down here. You could have like a sword or something on the steps, you know, debris of battle, whatever, another guy's arm here, say, the dead arm, a helmet. You're trying to keep the eye in. And then about setting, I don't know where this is set, but you could have a stone kind of thing that's maybe crumbled. And maybe some trees. You've got a moon, which was cool, so you could have that there. Keep the eye moving around. You could have some clouds coming in. And, you know, some kind of, pterodactyl creature, I don't know, in the sky. And, yeah, like, because in your other one, it wasn't clear what the setting was, too. I mean, these are all multidisciplinary things, so I'm covering a lot of different things at once. I mean, this gets into picture composition and considering elements. Like, you had a couple of things here, but it's really not clear what they are. Is it rubble? Is it a distant fort or building? It's really just not clear. So that's like subject of a longer thing. I liked your two moons thing. It's sort of a, you know, the exotic Frazetta-ish thing. And again, I'm thinking of silhouette, like where these are being placed. This could be kind of tree taking you into the sky. And you could even have, you know, more warriors coming up, like shadowy. Their swords. So that's like a threat. You know, maybe they could have like a pikes or those long lances or some kind of super thing, and they're all like advancing. So that means the guy here, our hero, is embattled. And I haven't even gotten into lighting. You know, you'd have lighting choices here about what angle you'd light this from. I think you had a kind of tunic thing here. So again, here I'm not worried that much about refining the anatomy because that can come later. The main thing is you got to get, if you're going to do a story moment, you got to get something that works, because if it doesn't work, it doesn't matter how cool you draw the anatomy. It's still not, it's going to be an awkward composition. So that's again where if you study masters like Frazetta and lots of others, they dial in the anatomy and the muscles really well in some places, but in other places they just kind of let it go. And this is a kind of a segue because it's a different subject matter, but this is an example. I keep showing this because I just love this cover, but it's a story moment, right? It's like a moment frozen in time. Here's Batlash protecting this little girl who's clinging to him. He's got his rifle. There's an Indian in this graveyard, and there's a whole bunch of them searching for him, obviously, and he's paused. He's frowning, probably because he's heard something, and the little girl's eyes are wide. It's just a great frozen moment where he's considered everything, and you focus on this interaction because these other Indians, like this one here, it might be hard to see in the video in the background. He's turning around backwards, looking around. So it's kind of clear when you look at this, they're all searching. And this one is paused, and he's looking, this guy, maybe he's the leader of he's paused, and it's like, what will happen next? I mean, you got to buy this comic when you're a kid. I just love this comic. It's the one I had. And it's Batlash, you know, fantastic, Nick Carty, and great comedic storytelling. It's kind of based on, I'm completely segueing here, but it's based on, I think, these kind of Westerns, like, it almost feels like a Robert Redford and those kind of things. And it's Sergio Aragonés who's involved in this too, who's did comedy. I'm pretty sure he's credited here too. Let me see here. In this case, it's story and art by Nick Carty. I thought Sergio Aragonés was involved, and the dialogues by Danny O'Neill. Anyway, that's about story moment. There's lots more covers I could show, but what you do is an evolutionary process, whether it's a composition or whether it's a character, and the character, the proportions, anatomy, and you play variations. So I'm going to end it there. I hope that all helped. And that's my first draw over. And we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.